Today's guest is a big one for me personally, is Colin Greenwood, best known as the bassist and co-founder of British art rock institution Radiohead, aka my all-time favorite band. Okay, I guess they're tied for the top spot technically, but I think it still counts. Radiohead's last concert was in 2018, and part of that reason is due to the pandemic, but all of the guys have been really busy with other projects in the meantime. Tom York and Johnny Greenwood, of course, have recorded 3 albums with their other band, The Smile. They're all incredible. Phil Selway and Ed O'Brien have released their own solo music, and Colin has been really busy. He's been touring with Nick Cave, and he's getting ready to release his first book, How to Disappear, A Portrait of Radiohead, which is a collection of writing and photography that documents Radiohead's time on the road. During our conversation, among other subjects, Colin and I talk about his earliest memories of collecting and getting into music, his favorite record store that he found while touring in America, and yes, I could not help myself because this is just who I am, some obligatory Radiohead stuff, which I think fans will really enjoy. So without further ado, allow him to introduce his show. Thanks for doing this, Colin. This is awesome.
Oh, you're very welcome. Is this okay for you as a thing?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, I can see some records. It's perfect.
Yeah, brilliant.
So how are you? I know you've been busy with Nick Cave and all that. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. So we did some shows near the beginning of the summer with Nick with piano and bass in Europe and stuff, which was really fun. So that's been really good. And um, yeah, and just been catching up with some friends in. I've just got back from New York and spending some time with the kids here, well, here and in America because they're half American. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to the autumn and my book coming out in October, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I just
So,
finished reading it a couple days ago. So
ooh,
yeah, I'm going to ask you about that for sure.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wanted to say this is a thrill for me because Radiohead is my absolute all-time favorite band, and you were on my like Mount Rushmore of favorite bass players. So
Wow.
I'm a bass player myself. I'm
Oh, that's cool.
not not on your level, but I
Well,
dabble. And so yeah, you're
thank
playing
you. It's very
such a
kind
huge
of you.
yeah, you're very welcome. So yeah, thank you again for doing it.
I,
First off, you may have noticed that I have kind of a Radiohead theme going here.
yeah.
Got some stuff up there. I always throw a couple records up, and I wanted to just say, obviously, that box set has to be one of my favorite reissues in recent memory. I absolutely loved it, and wanted to mention this because I talked to Phil a couple years ago
Oh,
when
nice.
he did his last solo album, and he mentioned you guys were going to get back together at the beginning of 2023, and I was just doing my thing because I had to ask, and I said, "Is there any chance of a Hail to the Thief reissue?" And he was a little cagey about it, that old devil Phil, but can you give me a breadcrumb? Is there any sort of update on that? Have you guys discussed
Uh,
this at all?
well, it's funny. I was thinking about it the other day. That record. I was talking to someone about it who really likes it, or I think it's a record. I think a lot of people say about records. It's a good record, and then it sort of turns into something else live, which is really cool. And
Yeah.
I watched. There's a song on the record called "Sit Down, Stand Up"
One
that
of
I
my
really
favorites.
like. Yeah, it's really intense and builds really nicely. And there's a performance I think we played in New York, I guess in 2003 or something, in the Hammerstein Ballroom or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's really bonkers. And I love the video for it as well, which was done by a guy called Ed Holdsworth, and driving, just a really simple idea, but beautifully executed.
Yeah.
So, and then, yeah, I mean, hopefully, we'll get to some point where we will play through those songs because I think a lot of those songs on that record are really fun to play live. Like "Where I End You Begin," I think is on that record as well,
Yeah.
and that's really fun. I think we did that from the basement.
Yeah. One of my favorite bass
Yeah,
parts, by the way. Such a great, I mean, everything about that song is great, but
that Tom wrote that bass line. That's on
actually
my.
it was it's funny, as I was saying that, I was like, oh yeah, I think I read that he did write that bass line. But it's got your touch on it, Colin.
Oh, that's very
Got the
kind of
magic
you.
touch.
I got a funny story. I was in Brixton a few years ago, this guy cycled past me and he said, "It's you're Colin from Radiohead." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." So I'm a bass player. I have to tell you, it's like I love your work, and some of my favorite bass lines are ones you play. And I said, "All right, it's my favorite. It's got to be Where I End and You Begin." I said, "Oh, well, that's Tom wrote that." And he said, "Oh, okay." No, he said, but the other one that I really really love that's amazing is National Anthem.
I knew you were going to say it.
I was like, well, but that was very nice for him to say that to stop and
Yeah, but
so
the irony is a lot of people I think have been saying, "Oh, it's kind of a depressing time to be a Radiohead fan because we've had this drought not having an album or tour." But and of course, I want there to be a new Radiohead album as much as anybody. But on the other side of the coin, it's such a
yeah,
productive time for everybody. You got Ed's
yeah,
making music. Yeah, you got this book coming out. You've been playing with Nick.
yeah,
Phil did a bunch of music. The Smile has released
yeah,
900 albums. We could go
yeah,
on about that.
yeah.
And this reminded me as I was prepping for this of this quote from Phil back when I interviewed him. He said, "For me, whatever we do, it all falls under the umbrella of the five of us. It all
Right,
feeds into it." I wonder,
right.
do you feel that way too? Do you feel like this is kind of the things that you're doing individually sort of in some way come back to Radiohead and they kind of keep the machine moving in some way?
Well, I would probably flip it, and I would say that we spent so much time working together over the years that I think it's kind of understandable that people want to try different things
Sure.
over a chunk of time, and it might feel like a long time, but in terms of like the amount of time we've been doing Radiohead beforehand, it's not that long. So I think it's that kind of thing. And the other thing about my band is we've all of us have been very supportive historically with what other people wanted to do,
Yeah.
and always given each other like space and made it priority, as important as anything else that's happening.
Yeah,
As
I
I said,
wonder
your
if you,
record collection as well. Those all your records.
yeah, this is just a snippet. I have
Wow.
probably three or 4,000 yeah LPs, and then I don't probably 1,000 or so CDs as well.
Right.
It's almost a problem. It's a sickness, I think, at this point, Colin. It's my wife,
It's great.
luckily, is supportive of it and also collects too, but I
Yeah.
think she's also like, it's time to slow down a little bit. And now look at me, I'm doing a podcast, which is
Yeah.
feeding the obsession. But yeah, I didn't know if you could, I don't know what you have behind you right now. Is this sort of the extent of your collection is just a snippet? Can you kind of give me a tour on what you have?
Actually, well, funnily, well, behind me, basically, it's mainly a bunch of records that I don't really listen to so much now because
Okay.
I'm upstairs in my sort of little office space where I put my photo book together.
Yeah.
And I could give you a quick spin with the camera if that's not disruptive.
No, I'm not at all. Sure. I'd love that.
Okay, so that's my computer. That's where I did my photo book,
Oh, nice.
and then that's my music system that I listen to,
It's a nice setup. Yeah.
and then that's the room downstairs, which has got like more music down there, which is where I actually spend all my time. But
Yeah.
but during COVID and around then, I was up here basically and making my photo book and stuff.
Mhm.
So it's not entirely like irrelevant to your program, your show, because I spend a lot of time up here and I've listened to a lot of music up here and I've got some things on the shelves behind me that are really important to me as well. So you know,
Yeah.
I've just picked some sweet peas for my garden up there. Can you see that?
Oh, no, I didn't see that. Oh, there we go. That's a lovely touch. You got a
Yeah,
nice aesthetic happening.
there's this weird thing on the iPhone camera thing where it's like a drunk cameraman is like sort of moving every time I move the
It's like a
screen moves.
zoom. It's like an auto zoom
That's
happening.
right. But there's probably a way of switching it off, but it's above my pay grade.
I kind of like
And
it. It's kind of artsy.
so yeah, so I just picked those because you have to keep picking them. They're like in my garden, and they all set seed if they don't get cut as flowers. And I used to grow them as a kid, so I just cut them now before I go away again. And then next to the flowers on my left shoulder is a photograph of Donald Duck's hands. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you what that was. That's
Can you see that? The reflection? Hang on.
yeah. There's a little glare, but wow.
That's the screen, isn't it? There you go. Is that cool?
That is wild. Yeah. I'm trying to make sense
That's
of
some serious riffing. Look at
that
this.
is like
That's after he was playing a gig.
yeah, that is gnarly. That looks like he's been
Yeah.
through some serious.
I'm embarrassed to say I can't read the signature of the photographer who gave it to me, which is I'm mortified about. And I feel really bad, but it was a long time ago because he's like one of my heroes, and he's like somebody that I learned from when I was a kid, like with a bass guitar. When the bass guitar became the thing I was going to do in the band.
Yeah. Yeah, I've read obviously you talk about him in the book a little bit, or just that like whole just era and style.
Yeah,
I've read some of your interviews as well, talking about your influences. I know how important he is to your playing. But yeah, thanks for that little rundown. I love the aesthetic. It looks great. Um, yeah,
it's a random collection of stuff, and I've got loads of CDs everywhere because I a friend of mine's her father passed away, and he had a collection of about I don't know 2,000 CDs,
oh my
and
goodness.
she couldn't. My friend couldn't give her father's collection away, and music college didn't want them because kids don't listen to CDs anymore. So I've sort of got them somewhere, and I've listened. And there are lots of Eastern European classical music like Bartok and Bruck,
Interesting. Okay.
and the stuff that I don't know that much about. So that's been an education.
Yeah, wow. Talk about a random way to get that education through this.
Yeah, that's right. In Oxford, there's a couple of good charity shops, and there's one that I went to over the years in Oxford, and I ended up buying like CDs because they're so cheap, classical music CDs, and there were some really good ones, but also some vinyl. And
Yeah.
this is the favorite things that I bought. I bought here in Oxford. I wanted to show you this on my shelf.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I'm just reading the names right now, but complete lute music. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John Dowland.
Yeah. Is that a box set?
It's a box set, Florilegium, and it's just fabulous. And it's there's the booklet, and there's all the lovely vinyl.
Nice.
Like, I think there's like 5 records, and it's just amazing. So over coronavirus, I ended up listening to a lot of like plucked instrument music, like the theorbo. Do you know the theorbo?
No.
It's like an amazing instrument. It's like this huge thing. It's like a sort of big brown sort of tub, like a lute, like a bowl,
Yeah.
with a soundboard, and then the neck goes on for about, I'm exaggerating, let's call it like 4 or 5 feet. I mean, it's
Wow.
crazy when you see someone play one of them. And there's a guy I know who's amazing called Jonas Nordberg from Scandinavia. I think he's from Sweden, but don't shoot me
Hmm.
if I get that wrong. Jonas Nordberg, and he's amazing. And it's this amazing sound. It's a lot really bass. There's more
Yeah.
bottom into it than the lute,
I've
and then
never heard of
lots.
this instrument. I'm gonna have
It's
to Google
amazing.
it.
But a theorbo. It's Theo, Theo, RBO, Theorbo, Orbo. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'll write this down so
It's
I
amazing. And you know, like how empty a lot of stuff was like during coronavirus because
yeah.
people weren't driving and walking and talking as much together. So, it meant that, it was felt like the right kind of space to listen to that kind of sound. So,
Yeah.
so that's what I listen to a lot. And like classical guitar, like a guy called Sean Shiba, who's amazing. He's a friend of mine who lives in Edinburgh, and he's an incredible guitarist. And his Bach record's amazing, but all of his stuff's amazing. So,
Yeah.
so
I was gonna
that's
ask
what.
you about classical guitar because I know you've been studying that or actively like trying to improve and really immersing
Yeah.
yourself.
Well, I feel a bit guilty because I haven't played it properly, seriously now for about a year and a half because I had to cut my nails to play the bass guitar
Yeah.
for
Oh, I didn't think about that.
which is, now that I'm working with doing bass stuff again, and then so that's frustrating, but I will go back to it when I have more free time. And then you asked me about so I listened to this is vinyl, obviously, and
Hmm.
then other stuff I found on my shelf behind me, which might amuse you, is our first Radiohead single,
No. Oh my God.
1992,
Oh man.
because
I would love to own
I've
a
got
copy of that.
I've got a bunch of like really old stuff over there, but I don't have very much because I gave most of it away over the years. Because it's
Yeah.
something that they liked it, I just used to give it. I used to give stuff to people. Um, and this is my other favorite things.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
JAD did this great series of records of Bob Marley. And this is the dub one. I listened to um CDs because they're a charity shop, and then vinyl. I've got back into vinyl. I love had an amazing trip experience. I met a lovely man called John DeVore who makes these speakers in Brooklyn in New York,
Mhm.
uh, he had an amazing room. And I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and I had an evening listening to just incredible old, classical music records on his speakers. And he had a turntable that was made actually 20 miles from here in Swindon in like 1950,
Wow.
called a Garrard 401, and through his speakers, and it just sounded sublime and really inspiring and stuff. So that's what I listen to. But my main thing that I listen to answer your question finally, is this thing up here, just
Mhm.
or this one here, is like a radio receiver, an FM receiver.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I listen to one radio station called Radio 3 on my radio receiver, and that's really all I listen to. Because I've got next to my house, I've got a big aerial that points to a radio transmitter up on a hill
Yeah.
about 30 miles away from here. And so I get an FM signal that's really good. And I just listen to all the classical music coming out of Radio 3 and all the avant-garde new music in the evenings.
Interesting. Okay. Not the answer I was expecting, but I'm glad I asked you about that. That is a rarely heard answer for me so far. So I'm glad I asked. This is taking you way back, but do you remember the first album that you purchased that was really yours? That you purchased it yourself,
I
or you got it as a
Yeah.
gift?
I don't know. I don't know. I just, you see that?
Yeah.
So I think this is made in like 1984
Yeah.
in the UK. It's by a company called Rogers, and it's the most beautiful sounding thing out of everything that I've heard in my 40 years of being in studios and stuff.
Wow.
And
Really?
I bought another one for like £30 secondhand the other day. So it just sounds really beautiful because you've got that compression from the radio station and everything. And yeah,
Yeah.
really beautiful. But to answer your question about that, I thought you might ask something similar. I I mean, I don't remember like exactly the first one, but
That's
definitely
okay.
pretty much one of the first records that I ever got. So me and my brother had an older sister.
Oh, classic. An all-time classic. That was
Um,
hers.
I think so. Well, she bought it and brought it to the house, and we would listen to it. I would listen to it. XTC Drums and Wires.
One of my favorite albums.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the thing about this as well for me is like the bass player is also very cool because he's called Colin,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I think about that connection.
he is such I mean, everyone knows that Andy Partridge is an incredible guitarist, and Colin Moulding is one of the best bass players I think in this country. He's one of the most insanely talented, technically brilliant, musical genius. I can't rave about either of them highly enough. And
Yeah.
it's like heart to heart. And then when they got together, it was Moida, and
Yeah.
if you remember that, and
Oh, yeah.
what a great record. I've
And
got a good story as well here about making plans for Nigel. You know that song?
oh yeah, classic. I'd love to hear. Yeah.
Well, I was in Japan starting a tour, and I was in downstairs and having breakfast with jet lag at like 6:37 in the morning. And
Yeah.
it was a Chinese wedding banquet style hotel, so the breakfast room was like massive, decked out in white and red velvet and stuff. There was nobody there because it was 6:30 in the morning. And I sat in the corner, and blasting out the speakers in this breakfast room was making plans for Nigel.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on? Because it was a really fancy hotel.
Yeah.
And obviously,
Not what you'd expect.
No, and it's like had like a outside a bridge and a river and everything, and indoors, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was in this area called Meguro, and I was like, this young kid who was working in the kitchen, he put his head round the door when he saw me that I was in this big banquet room, and I was the only person, and he looked at me like, what, he's a bit startled, and I just went
Yeah.
like this, and he went like.
Yeah. He found someone else to connect with. Glad you brought up your sister and just kind of early collecting. I know I
Yeah,
you, but I was going to ask you about that because I've read some quotes that you've talked about. Susan, is that your sister's name?
that's right. Yes.
I was looking that up, and I've read you talk about her influence on your taste and bands like Joy Division. What was the record sharing like in your house? Was she sort of the entry point, and Susan would get something and then pass it down to you, and then you'd give it to Johnny? And what was the was it just records all around? Like how did all that work? People can be possessive.
No, well, she wasn't because when we were really, really young, it was Beatles Red and Blue records. But when
Yeah.
we were like old enough to sort of start getting it, she would buy records, leave them in the house, and she wouldn't be living at home. She'd be at college or she'd be working. She's an archaeologist then or whatever.
Yeah.
And she'd just leave the records there. So we'd listen to the records. So it wasn't really, and we got into different things. I mean, because I was 2 years older than my brother. So
Yeah.
his first record was I think like a 7-inch of Cool for Cats in pink vinyl by Squeeze,
Okay.
and that
Yeah.
he bought from the local what's it called, department store in Oxford called Debenhams. Had a music section called Greens, and they had Debenhams music. And our mother threw it away because she thought it was obscene.
Oh, really? Oh
Yeah.
no.
So and
So good.
but yeah, I went down a Joy Division rabbit hole last night actually, on YouTube, watching old footage of them playing in Manchester, like on TV. There's only like 4 televised performances. Well, one of my greatest thrills was when Bernard Sumner came to see a Radiohead show at LCC, at a sports ground in Manchester,
Hmm.
and I met him briefly, before, definitely after the show. And I mean, he was looking really cool. He had a sort of camo jacket on and tinted glasses, and he was with a friend, and he said he really liked it, and I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was beside
Yeah.
myself. And then I got to see them play, in the current form in Belgium when I was doing some shows with this artist Tamino.
Yeah.
That was just really amazing, and I'd love to have talked to them a bit, but I didn't want to bother them equally. And so I mean, yeah, they're huge for like guys in my band.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've read almost everybody in Radiohead talk about them at some point. Hey, everybody. So you'll notice that this is not the normal setting for these mid-episode segments. Typically, I am at home in front of my record collection. That is not the case this time because I am on a camping trip. And instead of just reusing an old clip, I thought I would do the next best thing to filming at home, which is just to show you some CDs that I brought with me. My wife and I are nerds, as you probably gathered from the show so far. And so we bring a little boombox and we bring some CDs with us. So this is something that we've been listening to almost the entire trip so far. This is a little CD box set of the band PFM, an Italian band known primarily for their work in the 70s, progressive rock band. If you're into the classic first wave prog bands like Yes and Genesis, King Crimson, you'll absolutely love PFM. They bring that sort of capital R romantic quality to the genre, completely their own thing. They don't sound really like anyone else, even within the Italian scene. This is a really cool box. This is the Manticore studio album, so all 4 albums from their time with that label. This is a cool little package with all these CDs. And it has a little fold out with some artwork. It's my dog Steven saying hi, but really cool collection. All of the albums on here are really fantastic, including Photos of Ghosts, which is basically an English language version of an album that they recorded in Italian originally. And so there's kind of translated or revamped versions of some of the material from that album and kind of expanded a little bit. Really recommend checking out their work. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of the show. I wanted to show this photo from your book, which I absolutely love, by the way. The book is incredible.
Oh, that's really kind of you.
For
Thank you.
Radiohead fans, seriously, I'm not just saying it because you're on here, but
Oh,
such a joy. I mean, not only the photos, which are incredible, there's so many intimate photos and just backstage and on the road and all these. It's
oh,
the
thanks.
photos, but the writing itself is that's
Oh,
what
thank you.
really I was even as drawn to. Was just the writing was
Yeah.
fantastic. So
Oh, thank you very much.
congratulations. Yeah. I was gonna
That's
show
very
this one
kind of you.
photo. Yeah, absolutely. There's this photo of Johnny that I absolutely love.
And his
Yeah,
suitcase.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and the suitcase as well.
yeah,
Great
yeah.
photo side by side.
That's the same night.
Oh, really? I thought I
Yeah,
read
yeah, yeah.
they were a similar time
It's in
period.
Blackpool.
Yeah, okay. So obviously there's a connection with, the records Johnny was holding. Do you recall anything about this particular? I'm assuming this was Johnny went to a record store on
In
tour or
Blackpool.
something. Okay. Do you remember
That's
much
what we were.
about this? Is that
Yeah,
something you guys did much? Were you constantly going to record stores?
yeah.
Was that mostly a Johnny thing? Like,
Mostly a Johnny thing, and I would do a bit. But I mean, of course, you got the schlep with the records, and then having to get them back to the UK, and it's just really annoying.
yeah,
But
yeah.
obviously, that is in. He found this record shop in Blackpool that he was really excited about. But then this has been 2006 or seven when we were playing just before we were doing I think it was in Rainbows.
Yeah.
Or before and lovely man from Rolling Stone came, and David
David Frick.
Frick from Rolling Stone came to the show. He's got this amazing white hair. And we were
Yeah.
playing the Empress Ballroom, which is this sort of beautiful wooden sprung floor Victorian ballroom in Blackpool, and he was sitting in one of the balconies as we were playing. I could just see his hair and so those photographs are taken. That's kind of when I was sort of taking them for the first time as well. Was when I've got one of my first contact sheets back. Rather was from that gig, and I
Okay.
just love my brother. And that photograph is my brother on the back of the tour bus.
Okay. Yeah.
We're just driving back down from. I've actually got a picture of Tom sitting next to him wearing a brown puffer jacket, like this.
Yeah.
And I could have put that in next to it, but you can only have so many photographs in a book,
Yeah.
and it's just a really nice sequence of images. His happiness and pride of finding that record, and then there's his case with his touring clothes, which just look like something from a Goodwill store and like gone through
Yeah.
like a compactor,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's crumpled denim, and it's just like it's brilliant.
It's so great. Another one of my favorite photos, just to mention, it's kind of
Yeah.
unrelated, but is I think it's around the same time period. I should have earmarked it, but it's Ed sitting at what looks like, I know you write about it in there too. I didn't earmark the passage, but he's
What I
sitting
like
at the
about
breakfast table.
oh yeah, well, it's the same one. It's the same night. It's the same day.
The
They're all the
expression
same
on
day.
his face is just
I
incredible.
know. Well, I love that picture because again, it's in a conference. Well, it's in the sort of it's where people get together for like wedding conferences, weddings, and
Yeah.
it's and my brother's suitcase is in the dressing room, and of course, but it's a function rooms. It's not like
Yeah.
a grotty place. It's really lovely. So there's lots
Yeah.
of mahogany, and it's a bit like being in the back room of the bank manager back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so and Ed has just got off the bus in that photograph, which is why his hair is standing like that.
It's
And the
so great.
thing about Ed, I mean, lots of people, but I love Ed. But one of the things you need to know about him is you do not talk to him in the morning.
That's what that photo screams. It's like I've never seen someone look more like, please get away from me. The body language is like he's just been shell shocked, but he just looks, it's one of the most,
Well, he's on a tour. He's just got off a tour bus
yeah, which he probably, so in a way he has, yeah. Uh,
that's been rattling from side to side on the I don't know the M6 all the way up from like Oxford up to
yeah,
I don't know where we were, what we were doing, but he just looks like he hasn't had any sleep, and he also sleep shouts furiously as well. So he,
really?
he doesn't just sleep talk, he sleep shout. So there's lots
Okay.
of
I'm getting
shouting and
your
talking in his sleep. So that's him like completely utterly. So I'd probably say hello to him about 2 hours after that photograph was taken.
like I'm gonna give him some space.
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
learned to respect his boundaries at that time.
yeah,
Okay. I mentioned, being on the road and looking for records. I know you said that's mainly something that Johnny did, but you said
yeah.
you did some
In
yourself.
America.
Do you have any memories of like going to any great record stores and on tour?
Yes, yes. Um, I went to this great record shop we used to go to called Bill's Records in Dallas.
Bill's Records. Okay.
And he's sadly no longer with us, but he was a legend in Dallas. And he was this old guy. In fact, a friend of mine, guy called Johnny Christ, used to work there when he was a kid. And it's this big one of a mall out of town, I guess.
Hmm.
Huge record store, amazing collection of records. And Bill sat in the middle of it, chain smoking. Hair was sort of orangey coloured at the top. And I remember going in. We were like doing a show, and and I just loved talking to him. And I said I was a Joy Division fan. He just reached up, and there was a Japanese import only Joy Division box set with CDs.
Yeah.
He just gave it to me.
What?
I
Was he a
know,
Radiohead fan?
$150, I think it was. Just yeah, and I was like, and I bought about $100, $200 worth of vinyl DJ mixes of hip hop or 12
Okay.
inches that were
Nice.
done by local DJs, and it was amazing. So I still listen to them actually. I've got them behind me.
Oh, do you know where they are? I'd love to see him if it's not.
Oh, I don't know where it is.
Oh, don't worry about it. You don't have to hunt.
Well, no, it's all right. It would be more likely to be up here than downstairs because
I don't want
I
to see
haven't
you on a
played it.
scavenger hunt.
Yeah, but they're like James Brown and stuff like this. Oh, look, and this is like the first 12-inch that I got actually. I just found this is I actually this is
Oh, cool.
I bought this again. This is magazine. Do you know about
Oh,
the
okay.
magazine?
Yeah.
This is shot by both sides,
Nice.
recorded live at the Amsterdam Paradiso. And I'm never gonna find the one I'm telling you about, but I
Oh,
found
don't
that.
worry about that. That's
That's a
also very cool. That kind of answers
There
my.
you
I
go.
was going to ask you to grab one at random, so that's
You see
oh,
that?
yeah. Now I can actually see the text. Yeah.
And the
Awesome.
artwork was done by I think the artwork was done by what's his name? I always forget his name. It's so embarrassing. The guy who's at Factory Records, who did all New Order stuff. I'm mortified because he's amazing. And
Now I'm blanking too. I think I know what you're talking.
Designers Republic. And I have to look it up whilst we're talking because
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I've only met him like I had this conversation with him where we both had a favorite like 18th century English garden designer,
That is very specific.
yeah, called William Kent,
Wow.
uh,
Okay.
and yeah, Peter Saville.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So he's amazing. I mean, I think he did that, or I think he did that as well. I think so.
Okay.
I have to look that up. But so he did obviously do the Joy Division, New Order,
Yeah.
and lots of amazing things.
Colin, this is very random, and if I've been trying
Yeah.
to ask some of the same questions to everybody. What's a record that you own that people would not expect you to own? And it doesn't have to
Uh,
be vinyl, it can be any format.
what's the record that I own people do not expect me to own?
And you can interpret that however you want, but
It might be the second record that I bought. Um, which was I'll stop looking at that.
you're
It
fine.
was the first album. First record I bought was a 7-inch by New Order called Everything's Gone Green.
Mhm.
When I was about 12 or 13. And then the second record I bought was an album called can't remember, it's Kid Creole and the Coconuts.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's fantastic. I mean, it is fantastic. And so that's kind of like if I want to do, if someone asked me what my taste in music is, I would say everything between those two records.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good range, a good
Yeah.
good A. This is kind of branching off that. This just occurred to me, but is there a record you own that someone might poke fun at you for owning? Someone might give you some flack.
Well, when we were kids at school, and it was all very much more tribal and it felt quite judgy. I don't think it's as judgy now these days because of Spotify and streaming services. You can listen to music that's been made anytime, all
Yeah.
the time, anytime. It's less, curate. It's less. So I think that's fantastic. So did anyone have a record that people thought was? Mm, there's probably some kind of gothy 12-inch that I bought, which isn't very good. I don't know, Alien Sex Fiend or something like that.
Alien Sex Fiend. How do I not know what that is? That
It's on, I think I bought a 12-inch called Dici or something.
seems like a thing I should know about, but I don't know what
But
that
I
is.
really, but I
Google.
really didn't. I didn't. I'm sure my brother could come up with something that I got, which was like probably
Oh
not
yeah.
good.
He would have been the
But
better person to ask that question, who can make fun of you for your picks.
of course, the thing is, then at that time, I didn't have money to buy records that wasn't going to be good.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you had to be selective with what you got.
yeah,
Oh, that's from Bill's
that's some bills. Power Rap.
Power Rap. So who all
Yeah.
is on this? Let's see.
Oh, can you see that? I can tell you, Run DMC.
Oh, there they are. Fat Boys, Dougie
Yeah,
Fresh.
because I saw this film around the same time called King of New York,
Yeah,
and it had this incredible soundtrack by Schoolie D.
yeah,
So I got really obsessed with that sort of really spare hip hop stuff that I really early like, all that kind of stuff,
yeah.
and I loved it at Mantronics and East Coast and all of that, and Paul McCluskey and um, yeah, all of that, and yes, that's what I was really obsessed with as well for a while. So
I love that
yeah,
you found that. Yeah, I was hoping we could have a visual to go with that because sounds like Bill's Records was a pretty cool place.
it was amazing because it had a great collection. It was really, excellently curated and great taste, and it was a legend. It was like if you anytime you're in Dallas, you'd always go to Bill's.
Can you recall a specific? Well, no, you might just pick that. I was going to say a specific favorite find that you had when you were hunting, just something unexpected that you went, "Oh my God, I can't believe I found this," or just a great deal, a great steal, a great. You're flipping through the dollar bin and you found something just out of the
Well,
blue, anything
I
like
mean,
that.
more recently, I bought the one I showed you, the John Dowland, but again, it was in a charity shop in Oxford.
Oh yeah, you
It's
did mention that. Forgot that.
There's Benjamin Britten conducts the strings, um, English music, um,
Okay,
the strings, English Chamber Orchestra, and it's just beautiful. And the picture at the front is a place called I think Snape Maltings, which is in Aldborough, which is in Suffolk, which is on the east coast of England,
okay,
and that's where his house was. And they have this amazing music festival every summer. It's by the sea, and there's also a big nuclear power plant down the road as well. And
okay.
it's just that's I found that, and then I briefly used to go to a couple of record fairs near Philadelphia, and I bought like some like funk records, like can't remember the names of them now. So like Ripple and Charles Wright and one of the first Fifth E Street Band and yep and so he used to be in a funk covers band
Okay.
before Radiohead. So the thing was great. It was to go to America. You thought I'll go to a place where there's going to be record shops like stuffed full of like old classic soul and funk records.
Yeah.
But of course, what happened was that lots of French and Japanese European DJs in the early 90s had gone through the country with U-Hauls and bought all the records and taken them back to Europe. So if you really want to get a good like American funk soul collection, you had to go to like Copenhagen or Berlin or Tokyo. So, my kids, I used to go spend sort of time in this town in Pennsylvania, and it had a record shop called Sam's Records.
Mhm.
And I talked to the owner. This is about 15, 20 years ago. And I said, well, he had some records, and I said, what happened to all your collection? He said, oh, some French English dudes came by with a U-Haul and they just bought all my records
Yeah, my
in
God.
like 1990 or something, 91.
We're in the streaming era. Almost, well, not everything, but 90% of what most people want to hear is a click away.
Yeah,
It's, in one hand, it's kind of an amazing time because you can hear anything.
yeah,
It's pretty inspiring, but at the same
yeah.
time, there is something I think that's lost in being able to do that. I was talking to someone the other day about this one album that I remember buying and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And it was the Captain Beefheart album. And
Yeah,
I only liked it because I spent a lot of time listening to it. I really listened
yeah,
to the CD at the time over and over again because I'd paid, $20 for it at the time. It was a lot of money. And so I really invested a lot of my patience, a lot of my energy into wanting to like it, to really like
yeah,
it was a part, something I owned. It felt like
yeah.
I needed to give it a shot. And I feel like maybe that's kind of lost today. I didn't know if you have any thoughts about physical media in 2024 and why you or anyone might still collect these objects when we have streaming. Like, well, what do you think is the real reason for doing that?
Well, I sat down and listened to some vinyl a couple of days ago, and I remember sitting there listening to it and thinking, this is actually it's taking a long time to get to the end of the record, to the side, not because it was boring, but it's a really beautiful record.
Mhm.
And I just because my attention, I was focused on it. And out of all the types of music we've been talking about and ways of listening to music, I've got like an $800 streak, really good stream at $800. But I use it for work. I use it for learning like songs, and
Yeah.
I mean, and I've got the world's music on my doorstep through this box that sounds really good, and I hardly ever use it. It's true. And then my son, my 21-year-old, he listens to music, he doesn't even have to look for the music because the algorithms will tell him what to listen to. And
Yeah.
they're really good, the Spotify ones. They'll just, they'll spit back at him stuff that he will be into. It's not even like
Yeah.
so yeah, but I never really turn it on. I don't know if it's because I'm older or, I don't know. I don't know. There's not enough like friction to make it feel like that there's some kind of like transaction has occurred
Yeah.
to
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
to appreciate it. But then at the same time, it's incredibly brilliant. But I love buying CDs and records and putting them on and listening to them, and but that's just me. I'm just I'm senile and for the birds probably.
I Maybe we all are. I don't know. But yeah, there is something beautiful about. I love the idea of friction. I'm gonna have to steal that
Yeah,
at some point. That's great.
yeah.
Um, Colin, this was awesome. Really, seriously, thank you so
Happy?
much for your time. Like you didn't have to do this. I really
Oh,
appreciate
you're so welcome.
how you
I'm
made it.
excited for the project. I really hope that you have some fun with it, and
Yeah,
thank you so much for your interest in it all as well.
absolutely. Again, the book is so great.
Thank you.
It really, I knew it was going to be interesting, and since I'm such a Radiohead junkie, I'd like, okay,
Yeah,
I have to have it. But
yeah,
we'll see, how interesting it is. And
yeah,
it was I was blown away by how intimate it is, and just
yeah. Oh, that's great. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the writing. So,
I hope you'll do some more writing with it. I hope you'll do a sequel
yeah,
or something because the writing again is so strong and
thank you. That's
funny
really
and
kind.
interesting. Yeah, the way you
Thank
talked
you.
about going in, I think it was what is it in New Orleans, the Smoothie King
Yeah,
Center.
yeah, Smoothie King Arena.
There's
Yeah,
just these like repeated little motifs.
yeah, yeah,
It just made you feel like you're actually on tour
yeah,
and just the sort of
yeah.
the beauty and also the drudgery of that kind of
Oh, but I
combined.
love it. Yeah, but I love it. I mean, any European adores America.
It's so
So
great.
it's such a trip. Wow.
I have to
Okay.
do that.
Mine's a bit beaten up.
Oh, that's some vintage charm. Look at that. What was the year on that?
I think it's 1962.
Oh,
I
that's
could be wrong.
oh man, so nice.
And I put flat wounds on it. And look at the headstocks all burnt or whatever. It's all sort of